Hi, welcome everyone. Welcome to my Real Estate Investors Hangout. I'm glad everyone could make it. I'm so glad you're here tonight. Tonight we're going to have a lot of fun on our Hangout. I'm going to talk to you about setting up your letter campaign. 2 weeks ago, I talked to you about doing the sorting and figuring out your list. And then once you have the list, now how do you send out the letters? So I'm going to really dig deep into the details, something that people don't always do. But if you're going to get that effective mail campaign out, that's really what you need to do. So I'm just going to check over on the chat. I know a few people emailed me and said they couldn't get on to the webinar. So I apologize for that. If, you know, they're having some glitches, just try that link again or copy and paste the link right into the webinar. All right, so I'm going to get started. I'm going to first show you how to do some labels. And you see I have some notes here on the background. So in the notes, I'm going to talk about letters. I'm going to talk about business letters, handwritten letters, and yellow letters. Now, the reason you want to send out the letters really is you want to kind of engender some curiosity in the homeowner. You want that homeowner to go like, oh, wow, what's this letter about? I better read it. I better look at it. So that's the why. And you really want to do that so that you can get homeowners to call you and start making some deals. So for you, that's why you want to do a good job on your letters, is have the deals flowing in to you. And for the homeowner, you really want them to be curious about opening the letter. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to give you the how of how to make that happen for you. All right, so one thing I do is I do make return address labels, and I use Avery.com, Avery labels. And I'm going to show you just a little bit of screen share on how to do that. And the rest of the night, I've got a whole box of stuff here. I know you can't see it, but we're going to do show and tell. So it's kind of like kindergarten, you know, I got to show and tell. It's going to be fun. So when I do these labels, I don't use Avery labels. They're a little more expensive. I'll show you the one I use. I use Office Depot labels. And all these labels that Office Depot makes have the same number as your Avery label. So in this particular one, Avery label, the number is 8460. And that's just like a 1 inch by 2 5/8 inch label. And I use that for my return address. I'll try to zoom it into the camera here, close as I can. You can use a little bit bigger size if you want, but this is perfect for a return address label. So when I finish with things, I'm going to have to get them out of my box because I got my show and tell box here. So I'm going to show you how to take that and then go to Avery and make your labels. And I'll show you examples of some that I've used in the past. So here's one. That's a label, and it'll have my address on it. And that person there used to work in my office, so I would have them returned to her specifically. So I have that one. I've got a couple of other ones that I use. Here's one I like to use in the summer, and this one just has a barbecue on it, so it looks like, you know, a summer party. So I've got a couple different systems that I use, and Avery's always changing, you know, what they have available. So let's go over to screen share, and I'll show you that, how we get started right with those labels. I'm just going to check the chat room and see if anyone else was able to log in. All right, and while I'm doing that, I'm just going to keep up the poll. So if people log in, they can check on that poll. And the poll just lets me know how many rentals you have, how many wholesales you've done, how many deals you've done. And it makes it easier for me to do my training oriented towards the group of people that are listening to that particular training. And then I can focus on the next week, you know, what kind of things people need. So if you have any questions, type them into the chat. And if you can fill out the poll, it gives me an idea of my audience and exactly what types of things that they have experience with. So let me go over and do the screen share. All right, so this is the Avery label online system that I use. And right down here in the middle, I'm going to type in, I guess it's pre-typed in already, the number of the Avery label size that I'm going to use. Now, I use the Office Depot labels because they're cheaper, and I think you could get, let me look at this box here. It looks like I've been using this one for quite a while, 3,000 labels, so that'll keep you going for a little while. All right, so I'm going to do the do-it-yourself system. And of course, I've already opened an account with Avery, which is free, so you can do that. And then I'm going to go down, and I think there's a lot of different ones you can pick here. You can pick any really design that you want for your return address label. And remember, you're trying to make your return address label look like you're just sending someone an invitation from your home. So you can use your business address, but I'll show you how to make it look like it's coming from your home. So if I click on business here, it's going to open up, a few different routines, type, pictures you can use. It's good to use July 4th. You put the star on there in the summer. In the fall, you could use the football. I mean, there's a lot of different ones, that you could click on. If we look at real estate, I tend not to use those because they're a little boring. I mean, you could do one that has a house on it. But remember, when you send a letter, you don't want people to think you're a real estate agent until they open the letter, especially when you do hand addressed. So hand addressed envelopes, you want it to look like you're looking to buy a house. Now, I'll talk later about the business letters, and that's a totally different story. So when we make the labels, we want it to look like we are looking for a home. So I think there was another category I was going to look at here. Events and celebrations, parties. I think in the party one is where I found that barbecue one. Or you can just use one that's kind of, there's so many different choices. Use one that looks like a party. So say you wanted to use the cupcake. Kind of looks like you're inviting someone to a party. So for this one, let us select the cupcake, and we'll go to the next screen. Okay, so it's going to load it up for me. There's a lot of different options here. I don't really use that many. You also can load your own image if you don't like the pre-done images. You can add a text box, shapes, all sorts of stuff. So what you can do is put your name here. So I would put Janice. And I'm going to put in my business address. But what I'm going to do, oh, I know what I do. I'll just do 123 Main Street. Now, if you have a suite, what you need to do, or a P.O. box, what you need to do is change that into a number. So say you have a P.O. box that's 603. I put apartment 603. Now you're going to get your mail coming back to you in that mailbox, okay? So that's a good way to do it, apartment 603. So there's your return address label. And notice over in the right-hand corner, I'm not editing one label, I'm editing all of them because I'm not individually using these to mail to people. I'm using these as the return address label. So I want to be doing all of the labels the same way. All right, and then I just hit print and review. So it kind of populates that for me. So all I do now here is I put in a blank piece of paper just to test it and make sure it's all lined up properly. And in your labels, you will get kind of a blank piece of paper to use as a test. So I kind of make copies of that. And then you just grab one of the sheets that have the labels on it, load it in your printer after you've tested with a blank piece of paper to make sure you're loading it right, and then I just go print it. It says print it yourself, and it'll come down, it'll show that. You can, if you have labels missing from a sheet, you can just print less, but this particular size label will print 30 per sheet. So every time I'm sending out, 300 letters, I just do 10 sheets of these. So that's really how you do it. It's very simple. Pick a design you want, make it look like you're inviting someone to a party or it's coming from your house, or you can use the seasonal stuff. Like you could use the seasonal ones for Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever. Use those pictures. All right, so that's the end of the label part. And I'll go back here to our screen. All right. And so I finished off this thing up here behind my head about labels. Now I'm going to go into the business envelope. So let me finish the handwritten ones. So you put your label here. This is a really old address, so I'm going to kind of cover that up. So you put your label up here, and you have your handwritten. And so what happens is these letters will come back if that person has moved. Now, I mail to two different groups, absentee owners and free and clear. So if you're mailing to, say, absentee owners or free and clear, and they've moved, then they will not have the correct address. But remember, every year this has to get corrected because they pay their taxes. So I only find I get a return of maybe, with a yellow sticker on there, of about 5% of my letters come back with that. And then I have to do a skip trace, which we'll talk about later, and figure out where they live. Now, those deals are really the best deals because there's something that went on in that person's life. They sold their house. They got sick. Something happened with their family. They lost their job. They got divorced. I mean, those are some of the reasons why people move. So I would target those because I get the best deals from those because something happened in that person's life. So that's why you want to do your skip trace. So the ones that come back are really gold mines for you. So just think about that. All right, so those are the hand addressed ones. There's another thing I do with hand addressed envelopes. Like, I don't like to use that stamp, okay? See that flag stamp? I like to use fancy stamps. This one happened to be love. But I'll go into the post office and find out what kind of stamps they have. Here's another one. You want it to be memorable. You want that stamp to be memorable. So let me look at some of the ones I've done recently. There was a scouting stamp that they had. Let's find a nice big one. Oh, there were a lot of Batman stamps. So those are pretty cool. And there was another one. There were flower stamps. And I think there was a circus stamp, which was in another set. And I'll show you that in a minute. Lots of show and tell. Oh, okay. Here's a circus stamp. All right. So just go in there and buy a bunch of different ones. I usually clean them out. I buy everything they have, in stock. All right. So those are the hand addressed ones. You need a return address label, a really cute stamp, hand addressing. And I often put, I don't have it on these because they came back. I often put a sticker on the back. If I can find a pack of fancy stickers, I'll put them on the back. Now, in this particular one, I do the yellow letter. So I do a lot of yellow letters to the homeowners that are free and clear. So here's some of the tricks that I use for that. A lot of people sit down and write out all their yellow letters, and they write out the person's name on the letter. I don't do that. I make a copy. Okay, so I copy, and it says hi. That's all it says at the top is hi. Okay, and I copy that on my printer onto a stack of yellow letters, yellow paper that I pulled off of the pad. So you can make, hundreds of those. If they get stuck in your printer, then go down to Office Depot and print them there. So if I say hi, I can just print reams of them, and I don't have to self-address them. One of my friends sent out a huge mailing, And they didn't even use the yellow letter. They just wrote it on a piece of paper, handwritten, made copies. They didn't use this paper. They just used plain white paper. They got results, okay? There's many different ways you can do this. All right, so that's that. And when you're doing the hand addressing, I talked about this last week. What you want to do is get your list, which is in Excel, and then you do a mail merge. Now you can do mail merge in Word, and you can do it in Open Office. Unfortunately, I don't know why Apple did this, but this last version of Pages, they removed the mail merge app from Pages to make it compatible with the iPad thing of Pages. I don't know why they did it. Anyway, so you can't do it there. So you could open the same Excel spreadsheet in Open Office and do the mail merge. So I use the mail merge just to give myself a set of addresses so that my eye can follow them very easily and not be tracking across an Excel spreadsheet. Okay, so here's what it looks like. It's just printed on a piece of paper, all right? And then there's a 1 there because it means I sent out my first letter to that person. So you want to send 4 or 5, sometimes 6 of them, or just do it quarterly so that they get repeated mail from you. So that's why you mail merge and set it up for labels. But in this case, you're not printing them as labels. You're just using it so you can sit down and check them off and write them very easily. So that's kind of a mail merge trick that you can do to help you hand address. So these two things go together. You're going to do this, and then you're going to hand address them. Okay, and you can put a yellow letter in there, or you can do a letter, saying that you're an investor. So if I don't feel like doing yellow letters, then I do this one. Okay, I'm a San Diego investor looking to buy your San Diego property, and you can change the city to whatever you want. So that goes in those hand addressed envelopes. That's a letter you can use. So a printed letter or a yellow letter, and then your return address label, print it, have a fancy stamp. That all goes together as one type of mailing. All right, so what can we do next? Another way to get people to open the mail is to use colored envelopes, which you can use for the hand addressing, and you can use big envelopes. So you can go to a stationery store and try to buy stuff, large quantities of it, or order them by the case, whatever you need to do to get them cheap. Okay. Okay, so there's another trick that I can do, and it has to do with how to seal those envelopes. I don't usually use these peel ones. They cost a little bit more and sometimes a lot more. So you need to take a sponge, cut your sponge in a little strip, and you can just seal your envelope like that. Have a little cup of water next to you, and that's how you get that done. Let me put that away. Oh, I also mentioned that you can put stickers on the back. So if you find really inexpensive stickers in the clearance section, we put those on the back, and it gets people to open them. So curiosity. How do you create the curiosity? So that brings me to lumpy mail. So I'll tell you what happened when I started using lumpy mail, and I was using advice from other real estate people. They said put a piece of candy in it. You can buy big containers of candy and put a piece of candy in there. And I apologize, I'm digging around looking for the one that has, it's buried here somewhere. Anyway, I had an example of lumpy mail. So what happened was I sent it out. It's an older letter. Here it is. Anyway, I sent out something like that with a, oh yes, I know. It's going to cost you a lot more. I sent it out, and I went to the post office. Instead of dropping it in the box, I went to the post office and said, I've got all these because I had to buy extra stamps. And they looked at what I had, and they saw the thickness of that piece of candy and decided that it was going to cost me way more to send that letter. In fact, I had to buy an extra 75-cent stamp to stick on all those letters, because the post office now has a new rule. It happened a few years ago. If it doesn't fit through this really skinny track that they show you, they won't take it unless you pay extra postage. So it's a lot thinner than it used to be, and so I do not advise using the candy in the lumpy mail. So you got to find something else. So here's a couple things that I've tried over time to use that work. So you kind of go to the craft section and try to find something really inexpensive. And I got 3 tips for you for that. So the first one is these little foam pieces, and the kids like to use those. So it's got a back that you would stick on something, but I don't do that. I just throw it in the envelope. So that's one. These are just thin cardboard craft sticks. You can buy hundreds of them. So put that in the envelope. We also bought a lot of extra Easter grass, the stuff that goes in the Easter baskets. And I put a little piece of that in there, and it's like, what is that? It's like you have grass in the envelope, so it's kind of fun. The other thing I use are these colored paper clips. You know, they're a little bit nicer, and they have different colors, and they're a little thicker. So I put that in there so they feel that inside the envelope, and they're like, I better open it. You know, what is it? So that's another thing to put in the envelope. It's a bunch of different things to do. Okay, so we went over the envelopes, the labels, and how to get your list to do the hand addressing. Okay, and lumpy mail. So that's the trick with lumpy mail. Make it super thin so that they want to open it, but not so much that the post office charges you. And the reason I'm looking around is I had an envelope where I had to add that 75-cent stamp, and that was really just a lot of extra stuff for me to pay for, which I did not want to do. So bottom line is, don't go to the window and don't use candy. All right, so that's the handwritten. So I'll move over here a bit. Let's see which way is the best way to go. So I use handwritten for absentee, and I use handwritten for absentee and free and clear owners. I use the yellow letter for free and clear because when I'm addressing a landlord, I'm not saying things like, I want to buy your house. So it has to do with emotion. When you write the yellow letter, you're appealing to a homeowner who's lived in the home and wants to sell that house to another family. So it's family to family, and that's why you do the yellow letter. The yellow letter doesn't have that much effect on landlords because to them, it's another investment. So you really don't need to send the yellow letter to absentee owners. So for absentee owners, I use more of the, the business approach, that printed letter that I showed you, okay, with a header at the top. And then down at the bottom, I used to sign those all. Now I just use a script font in blue or a different, blue, so that it looks like I signed it. It's good to have a PS at the bottom because on the PS, you can give your phone number again. So you give your phone number in the letter and you give your phone number again in the PS. So they have a couple places to look for it. So that's the business style letter that goes in a hand addressed envelope. So now let's look at, and I talked about stamps. Let's look at the business letter. So what happens with the business letter is I buy these business envelopes, and I buy the 2-window business envelopes. I'm going to show you the box, even though it's upside down here. Okay, the number 9 double window envelopes from Office Depot. You can buy from somewhere else. Just look around for the best price. They are about $45 for 500. So it's going to cost you a little bit, but the beauty is you're not hand addressing, and I'll show you how to set that up so the letter goes right into the envelope. As soon as I moved the box, I found this. Okay, so here's the one where you can see I had to add a 75-cent stamp onto that just to mail it because it had this really thick. In fact, it broke it when it went through, broke the envelope. There was a piece of candy in that particular envelope. So they like to hand cancel those, and that's why they're going to charge you more for it. All right, so that's your classic business envelope. What I do with that is I like to stamp them. I'll show you some that came through here. This one looks, it's hard to see, but I stamped them urgent. Okay, and I just buy one of these stamps. Again, Office Depot, any office supply store, it says urgent. So, oops, urgent. So you're mailing to a landlord. They're used to getting a lot of bills. So because they're used to getting bills, you just send them a bill. Now, I used to use white paper. Now I tend to use colored paper, and I'll make it for the season. Like these are purple for the spring. I might use a blue in the summer, 4th of July, picnic. I might use orange in the fall or around Halloween, and maybe even red at Christmas, or green. Green at Christmas is good. So I just use different colors. It makes people want to open it up. Again, I still use those stamps. So I'm going to show you a couple of other ways to do stamps too. That just reminded me about the stamps. So I have a collection of letters that I've gotten from other investors that got sent to me because I have rental properties. So I'm going to show you one of those, and it's something you should probably look up. I haven't used it yet, but I know it's a little bit cheaper. If you do want to send, here we go. If you do want to send this mail and save a few cents, you can use what's called pre-sorted. And with pre-sorted standard is they give you a stamp. It's not a pretty stamp, but it's a sort of a stamp, but it's a few cents less than a regular stamp. So that's if you're going to send them all into one zip code. So it's pre-sorted. You can't, I think you can't, you can mail them to a post office, but you can't mail them to a post office near where you live. They want you to come in with it all pre-sorted and give it to them at that particular post office. Or you can send a box with all of them to one particular place, and that way they don't have to go through central mail. They can just send it to that one zip code. So it's pre-sorted. So that's a few cents less, and you can look that up online for pre-sorted. So the other thing about business envelopes I wanted to show you, I don't use, these are kind of like these fancy Ready Seal ones. I don't use those or the things you peel off. I just like to use that sponge I showed you before. All right, so what else in the trick bag here? Okay, we will talk about, I think next week we'll talk about postcards, but here's a postcard that I got from someone else. I was devastated when I found out you threw away my last card. So yellow is a really good color. If you have a stack of mail, that yellow stands out and people see it. So it doesn't have to be glossy. If you use click to mail, which I'm going to do on another webinar, you can just use regular non-glossy paper, matte paper, which is a tiny bit cheaper. And this person printed on both sides, but I have one where you can kind of squeeze it in and it fits on one page. So keep things that other people mail you if you have rentals, because it gives you ideas on what to do. All right. So, by the way, I was going to show you, there was a long running thing on Facebook on one of the groups I'm in on the, I think it was the wholesalers. And they were talking about they got so many letters back, so many postcards back. This was from, these are the returns I got from about 200 letters to one particular zip code. And really it's between 5 and 7%. So if you're getting more than that, there's really something wrong with your list. And this group came back, I think, from about 300 letters. So again, less than 5%. So here's what I do with that. So some of them will come back and it will tell you the new address, but the post office didn't forward it. So you notice that's an empty envelope. I just take those out, put them in a new envelope, new stamp, and away they go. So 3 of them had an address. The rest of them, it just says we have no idea what the address is. There we go. So those ones you're going to have to skip trace. So we'll talk a bit about that in a minute. I was going to show you the letter. So the way I set up the letter, it says I'm interested in buying your property. And I have set this letter up so that my return address shows in the top window and this address shows in the bottom window. So you have to play around with the Word document a little bit to make your letter show up. And there, I'm going to show you that again. So I've got that blue font and also a PS, which shows my phone number again. So I want to show them that particular phone number. And because I mail merge this one, like this one will show in the mail merge, it has the address of the property that they own that I'm interested in. So that all gets folded properly. And these are those number 9 envelopes that I mentioned. Number 10 is kind of too big. So number 9, and it fits right in and it goes off to them. So I promised this on my list of things that I would show you. So another thing that helps people remember your phone number is this. I do this sometimes on the yellow letter, is I stamp a Post-it and then I put the Post-it on there with the paper clip. So they can just keep the Post-it if they want, and it's already done for them. So I just take a whole stack of Post-its and just sit there and stamp them or have my kids do them or something. So that's a fast way to give them something extra. 2 ways to keep track of you. So, you know, people call you right away with these deals, but then sometimes they wait 6 months or a year. So what you're doing really is you're seeding a field. You're farming. You put out those seeds and 6 months, 9 months, a year later, sometimes 2 years, they come back and call you because it's not about you. It's about them. Something changed in their life. They got divorced. They lost a job. Their wife got sick. Their husband got sick. They had to move. They had to move to another part of the country to help a relative who's sick. Things like that happen all the time. Or if it's an absentee owner, you know what happens. The tenant move out and trash the place. And it's too much for them. They just, in combination with the other things going on in their life, they don't want to rehab that property. Or they're done. You know, they're 75, they're done. They say, oh, I don't want any more rentals. So they keep the letter, and when something happens, they call you. And that's what happens with my letters. People call me and say, oh, my tenant was in there 5 years. Now they moved out. Do you want to buy it? So that's when they call you. So I think I covered a lot of, you know, my show and tell pieces here. You just check my little box. Okay. And let me go over the review behind me. Go this way, I think is the best way. So I showed you the business letters, and I send those to absentee owners. I showed you handwritten letters, which can go to absentee handwritten envelopes. That's what the E stands for. So the business envelope with a printed letter or a handwritten envelope. It can be a printed letter if it's an absentee owner, or a yellow letter. So that's a handwritten envelope with either letter can go in there. The yellow letter, I only send to free and clear. And that has to be in a handwritten envelope as well. I talked about lumpy mail. You've got to put something in the envelope to make them want to open it. Of course, I can't find them on my desk now. Anyway, there was the foam piece, the cardboard piece, some grass, no candy. It's too thick. That's not going to work. Phone scripts, and the sheets. So here's another one too. So do your mail merge, get your addresses on these sheets, because it makes it easier when you go to write them out, or you just hand it to someone else and have them write it. Imagine giving someone else an Excel spreadsheet and making them read across to do it. You're gonna find mistakes. So you don't want to do that. You want to give them a list like that. Get a fancy stamp urgent or something else, funny on there, and it gets them to open it up. All right, so what do I do about the phone number? Okay, I don't know if you want them to call your cell phone. I would rather have a different phone number. You can use a Google Voice phone number, absolutely free, and it can be forwarded to your cell phone number. It can be forwarded to your partner's cell phone number. It can be forwarded to an office phone. It can be forwarded to several phones at once, okay? You can also get an inexpensive track phone that you have no monthly charge on, and it only rings when you have a deal. So you would carry that with you. It's going to ring when you have a deal. And you're only going to pay for those calls. If you want to get a little more advanced, and this is what I suggest, is that you get a regular phone number, either a local number or an 800 number specifically for this portion of your business. And I've got on my website, I'm listing kind of all these links for you. So go to wisewealthuniversity.com/resources. So in the resource section, I give you links to some of the phone services that you could use. So one that I like to use is Grasshopper, and I've got that link posted for you there. So with Grasshopper, here's what you can do. You can have a script that you pre-record, so when they call you, you don't have to think about what you're going to say. The pre-recorded script lets them know that you're not buying it for full price. It lets them know that you're going to be paying for a lot of costs, fix-up costs, termite, closing costs, escrow, whatever you want to put in there, and let them know that you can close quickly because you buy it with cash. And then you let them leave a message. So if they're not interested in what you have to offer, you never have to talk to them. They leave a message, you call them back right away. Grasshopper is set up so that it can send you an email message, it can send you a text message, it can ring your phone, it can ring your partner's phone. All three of you in your group, in your partners, can all get an email. I mean, there's a lot of options there. So you could get a Grasshopper phone. I was looking because there's notifications coming up here. I'm going to change the poll now and switch over to my ebook in case you guys need some private lenders. That's going to show up on the side. Okay. So I suggest you get a phone, and I suggest you leave a script. Write out the script you want and just talk it into the phone and have it be the message that they hear when they first come on there. So with Grasshopper and some of these other phone systems, you can leave a long message, longer than you probably can on a regular cell phone. So that's a good way to track the people that call you back from the letters. And let me see if I have any other things here on my, oh yeah, skip trace. Here we go. All right, so when these letters come back, you're going to want to skip trace. And I said I would tell you all about that earlier. You can use some of the free services, and you can go back and forth and try to figure out where they lived, maybe their phone number and a relative, and you might figure out who the person is. Maybe you can't figure out by their age because you don't know what their age is. So it's probably better to pay for a service. I use People Smart. There's other services you can pay for as well. It just depends on if you want to do a trial or you want to do it long-term for a year or monthly or whatever. So then you would take the letters and the addresses and go look up the person, put them in a new envelope and mail to them. If you can get a phone number, that would be great, because it means that something else happened in their life and they're more willing to sell their property to you. So I was just looking over at my other screen here for a sec. All right, so let me go over just a couple things. I do have a guest next week. So this finishes up everything I needed to tell you about how to send out your letter campaign, and I really suggest you do it. It's the best way to get your own deals going. There's no competition because that person's talking just to you. All right. It's not like a pre-foreclosure letter where they're getting tons of letters. So mail out your letters. They're like seeds. Let them ferment, let them sit with that person, and eventually you're going to get some calls. When we mail out our letters, we always get a few calls right away, and then the other calls trickle in months later as they think about it. So it's something really important to do. So there's the letters. Let me check the chat room. All right. Okay. So the chat room is still up. Any questions you have, you can post in the chat room. And I'm really excited to teach you guys how to do these mailers, because they've been the source of very successful deals for me. All right, so I'm going to do one more screen share, I think. Oh, here's what I need to do. I need to show you where else you can, find our Hangouts. So many different things to keep track of during the webinar. All right, so we do our Hangouts on Thursday night at 6 p.m. and you can find them at wisewealthuniversity.com/Hangouts. And you can sign up there for the Hangouts. This week, I didn't use that because my website's being updated, but that's usually where you can register for the Hangouts. You can also follow me on Twitter. My handle is Pink Professor. So go there and I give updates, daily updates on different things going on in real estate. And if you have any questions, post them there for me and I'll be sure to answer them on a Hangout. All right, let's go back to that. All right, so anyway, I want to thank everyone for joining me tonight on the Hangout. I have a guest next week, and his name is Jay Sherman. He's a San Diego investor. He's done a lot of flipping, and he's raised millions of dollars in private funds. And he's going to teach you some of his favorite ways to network, and especially networking and finding deals just in his networking. And he'll also touch on other things about private money and also on joint venturing and some of his favorite ways to joint venture on a project. He did make some strategic moves, and he was able to quit his job years ago and go full-time in real estate. So I really encourage you to come back next week and listen to Jay, and let's have some questions ready for him. So I want to thank you all for coming tonight. I really appreciate it. And I'm so glad you joined me on Thursday night for my investor hangout. Again, if you have any questions, you can find me on Facebook at Wise Wealth University, on Twitter, Pink Professor, and also on Google at Wise Wealth University, and on my website, Wise Wealth University. I have a lot of blog posts there, and I also post previous Hangouts so you can go watch those. Oh, the other one I forgot is on YouTube. You can follow me on YouTube, also on Wise Wealth University. All my previous Hangouts are in a playlist. So if you go to the playlist and you run through them, really you'll have a complete real estate investor education. So go ahead to the playlist, skip around, or start from the beginning and learn everything you need to know. I'm here to help you guys. I am really happy that you're watching the show with me, and I will sign off for tonight, and I'll see you next week because I'm very excited to have my guest Jay on the show. So go out and send out some letters. Go ahead, send out some letters and get some deals going for you. So everyone, thank you for joining me, and good night. Have a great weekend. I'm going to show my movie, which I forgot to show. So let me put that up, and I'll close out after that. Good night, everyone.